Twin Films.
Hello, everybody. So welcome to a new episode of Twin Films.
This is episode 4 of Twin Films. We're doing Weird Science and Real Genius. And both of these movies came out in 1985. And lucky for you guys, we have a special guest this week that is a total camp 80s kid like me.
I'm looking forward to this one. This was an 80s episode, so it was quite a change, but it was pretty good. What did you think overall, Drew?
Yeah, some interesting dated things here in this one coming up. But overall, I just think really fun nostalgia. A lot of the movies we've been discussing in the previous episode have all been 90s, 2000s. So we wanted to add a new element in starting this week where we give you a little context for what the world was like at the time these movies came out. Even though we're a movie podcast, I think it's helpful as we watch these films to understand what the viewer was living through at that time. We're going to go over some world events from the year the films were released. They might be political, they might be entertainment industry, they might be sports, just kind of a grab bag so that you as a viewer can be transported into that time and space. So let's go back in time to 1985. Literally on January 1st, 1985, the domain name system for the internet is first created. January 20th, Ronald Reagan was sworn into his second term as United States president. March 25th, 1985, the Oscars are held and Amadeus wins Best Picture. March 31st, the first ever WrestleMania in Madison Square Garden featured a tag team with Hulk Hogan and Mr. T on one team, fighting up against Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. Damn. May 16th, 1985, the British Antarctic Survey, which was a group of scientists, reveal the first discovery of a hole in the ozone layer over Antarctica. June 15th, Studio Ghibli was founded in Tokyo. September 1st, they found the Titanic wreck underwater by sonar. September 13th, 1985, Nintendo releases Super Mario Bros. November 20th, Microsoft unveils Windows 1.0. 1.0. I said it right. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ernesto.
For today's episode, we decided to bring in a self-proclaimed 80s expert. Our guest today is an actor who's worked in the film industry for over 20 years. He was born in Cuba and raised in Miami. He's a proud graduate of SMU in Dallas, where he earned his degree in theater. He's acted in television shows, feature films, and commercials. In addition to acting, he's also a working screenwriter. He wrote Ladrones, that came out in 2015, and was distributed by Lionsgate in 2015. Please welcome Jon Molerio.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So
Very
we're excited
excited
to have you.
Thanks, man. First time doing a podcast. Thank you.
Oh, shit. All right.
We're honored. We're
Well,
honored.
thank you.
Are you feeling
Likewise.
a little nervous? Or?
A little bit. I'm shaking, but I'm trying to control it.
This is a safe space.
Yeah. Round 1, plot.
All right, so first we're going to talk about Weird Science, which John Hughes directed and written by. It's based on a comic book, actually, by Al Felstein and William Gaines, produced by Joel Silver. Weird Science was Universal Studios, budget of $7.5 million, and it grossed about $23.8 million at the box office in the U.S. and worldwide, almost $40 million. Their little tagline is, I don't know why I find this one really funny. All right. They went from zeros to heroes in one fantastic weekend.
Oh my God. I wasn't even sure if it was a weekend. I thought it was just like a weekday
I know,
or something.
I feel like it's a day. But,
Okay.
and then the other part of it is 2 high school nerds use a computer program to literally create the perfect woman who promptly turns their lives upside down. Dudes, computer,
Right.
babe,
Yeah.
party.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
That's it.
Yeah. That's
That's
pretty
all
much
that's
it.
there. Kelly
I was-
LeBrock in her underwear. That's all you
I
need.
was so stoked.
And what a genius move to make her smarter than them, to make her more dominant than them. Because it could have easily gone creepy, right?
And
Right.
self-aware. She knows they created her.
Right.
And she's fine with that.
She was basically like a genie, right? Like a genie
Yeah.
that pops out
Yes.
and can grant them wishes. That's basically the story. In the same way that the genie in Aladdin is completely in charge. Because if not,
Yeah.
again, they're creating a woman or pleasures,
Yeah.
this can get very creepy very fast. Even for the 80s, it would have been like, ew. I didn't realize how good she was, too. I never,
Oh, yeah.
I'm watching this and I'm like, I always remember her just being gorgeous, but she has good comedic timing.
She really does.
Yeah.
And there's so much subtlety in her face. I mean, that's where the model part kicks in. She's so aware of everything going on her body.
The technology in this movie cracked me up. It
Ridiculous.
was so fucking funny.
So bad.
I love when they're just
So
like
weird.
feeding these nude magazines into
Right.
the machine.
But
no,
again,
they open their spank bank, y'all. They literally
Right, the
have the
chest.
treasure
Yeah.
chest.
the chest
they
that's
open,
locked,
and I'm like,
yeah,
oh,
they
God.
unlock it.
But
And-
then they're also putting Einstein pictures.
Right, because they want her smart. Again, this
Well,
is
What if she came out looking like Einstein on the? I don't know.
But
It
I
was
do
a
love
risk.
to like, let's make her boobs big. Like, no, it's too big. We got to make them small.
yeah. I would think actually, I think if you combine like Einstein and Kelly LeBrock, you could get like real Proman. You know what I mean? So that could have been a
The hair is
that-
spot on.
Yeah,
spot
so
on.
the hair. I think again, going back to the innocence of so much of the '80s, but also technology, that we thought computers could actually do this, man.
Well, they add that extra step where they're like, my computer can't do this, so they hack into the government computer,
Right.
and there's all those visuals.
If you wrote Back to the Future today, you'd have to spend 15 pages explaining why Marty is even friends with an old guy. And nobody cares. And I think there was an earlier draft where I read Marty and his friends broke into Doc's laboratory,
Oh,
which again makes Marty like a thief. And then Doc caught him and said, well, you're going to be my assistant, Don. Oh, great. Now I feel better about this movie. Let's get back to
that's
Time
the plot of Ant-Man.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is true.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, I love that they jumped to the fun.
I love the fact that they hook their government-powered computer up to some electrodes on a Barbie. Where did they get that Barbie?
Yeah.
Right. She looks just like her.
Also, 2 teenage boys have a Barbie in their room.
Obviously, none of it makes sense. And then I think they're self-aware. They put the bra on their head.
Yeah.
The bras in their head.
And it makes no fuck. They're aware. Like,
She-
why are we doing this?
They're
I
making
don't
fun
know.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah. The whole bathroom busts open and the pink smoke and the whole house is electrified. Everything's crazy.
The red sky.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And then, she's like, so what would you little maniacs like to do first?
Right. And then like the shower. And then, of course, in true teenager, because again, a teenager imagines that if they were to live out this fantasy, they would be Burt Reynolds in the 80s. And they're not, because they're little, teenage, uncomfortable, scared. You're scared about these situations when they present themselves.
Well, and the opening scene of the movie is these nerds
Right.
staring at the gymnastics class, imagining all the cool things they're going to do when they get a chick and they get pantsed.
Right.
And then they do actually make a chick and they don't know what to do with
They
her.
don't, and that's part of the innocence and also why this movie, they had to walk that fine line between being creepy and being in good fun.
It works because they're wearing their pants in the shower.
That they're wearing their shoes, they're wearing their pants. It's innocence. It's laughy. She's the one that's like, what's the big deal? Because she's an adult.
And it's a great reveal because
Yeah.
you're seeing a lot of the scene without seeing their lower halves.
Right.
And then she's about to get out of the shower and she's like, why are you guys still wearing pants? And they pan down. It's
Well, I mean, if you were
Good.
15 and you saw this hot girl, how would you react?
I think like they do. I think like she's way out of my league. She's an adult. I'm inexperienced and you geek out. You just like freak out. Yeah, you're not as cool. Looking back at me when I was a teen in having girlfriends and all that, I was like, I was scared. You're not, only when you have like a long-term girlfriend do you finally ease into the, you being a couple. But no, I think this is the brilliance of this middle-aged man.
Okay.
He nailed being a teen.
Interesting. Okay.
and
okay.
she's they know how cool she is. They have to be intimidated by her because they made their dream girl.
And part of her being English is also kind of even more like exotic and like
Mysterious.
the
Yeah.
English always sound smarter. Let's face it.
It's true. It's true. That's our Stockholm syndrome trauma as
Yeah.
Americans.
Because they were brilliant.
yeah.
I've never heard that
We're always
before.
less than our oppressors.
Did you come up with that? That's brilliant. That's the Stockholm syndrome as Americans. That we're like, they were, the captors. We were, the captors.
They're classier. Oh, but they did oppress us for hundreds of years. But they're still classy. Okay, we have seen other instances in John Hughes movies, looking at Long Duck Dong, where some questionable things have happened.
Yeah.
racism-wise. And I, like I said, have seen this movie a couple times. Did not remember the scene in the Blues Club at all.
Oh, right. Yeah,
It was completely wiped from my memory for good reason. It almost makes me not want to, like, I want to tell people, like, just fast forward that scene, because the first time they go out with their beautiful new woman that they've created, they drive in her Barbie core pink Cadillac to a blues club, sitting around all these African-American people. Gary drinks, what is it? Blind Dog Whiskey?
Yeah, something.
Has some
something like that, yeah.
terrifying name. You should definitely not be drinking that as your first drink. Like, have a fucking natty light, man. Have a beer. Gary gets shit-faced and all of a sudden is wearing a purple pimp hat with a feather sticking out of it.
I totally agree. We would never do that today, but I still think it's in good fun. I don't think there's any, like, who do you root for in that scene? These African-American people are the baddest. They're the coolest. They want to be cool. So I don't think they're making a they're definitely
That's interesting. That's
a good
interesting.
point.
Yeah. Like,
there is.
they want to emulate them.
There is.
Yeah.
And look, if you're John Hughes and you're in Chicago, you better fucking love blues, because that's the home of Muddy Waters.
But I think when you look back at the 80s, that's always going to be an issue, isn't it? It's going to be the gratuitous nudity, the racial stuff, stereotypical stuff, the misogyny. A lot of it, you got to be like, well, that really blows. You know, that sucks. And some of it can be like teetering and you're like, they were of their time. You know, like, I think it's hard to look back and be like, for that period of time, everybody seemed to be in the game. Of course, how many people were just like, I have no choice, right?
It was made in fun. It's a little cringy to see today.
Totally.
You can totally feel that. But also the way Anthony Michael Hall plays it, it reads like a little kid who's trying to act like an adult.
Yeah.
And it is still cringy. It's still like, ugh, it's so fucking
I mean,
weird.
they're almost like, they're looking at him and they're almost laughing the whole time they're watching him.
You know, and you know he's drunk. So it's not, it wasn't, I didn't enjoy watching it, but I understood what the character was doing. You know what I mean?
And again, this is where obviously, you know, that stuff looking back on it, you're like, ooh, you know, whatever. I mean, come on, as Latino guys, it was always maids and butlers and all that stuff and gang members.
It was a world of stereotypes.
Yeah, there was never, obviously, I don't think that changed until like the Cosby Show that now, thanks Bill for ruining that.
And that's ruined too.
Yeah. So, you know, but I think that's when it started to change. I mean, even when I got here to Hollywood back in 99, I went with Juan as my name because my dad's name, like my stage name, because my legal name is Middle Eastern sounding. It's Arabic. And I just thought that would be confusing because I'm a Hispanic dude. And then they'd put me in for all these Arabic roles. And I just felt like if I was Arabic, I'd do it. You know, I just was like, so I was like, I'm a Latino dude. Let me be proud of my heritage. And I went with Juan, which is my dad's name. And all I went in on were gang member roles.
Oh.
Like strictly.
Yeah.
And honestly, I did my best to be like, Simón ese, ¿qué onda, loco? What are you talking about, man? La familia ese. I did all that stuff and I acted my little heart out. I'm from the burbs, right? And like, I read like I'm from the burbs. And Joe Menendez called me in on Los Beltran. He was directing it for a part of a cholo. And he said, bro, you were the best actor we saw all day, but there's people who are actually in gangs that audition for this. And I can't compete with Little Puppet, you know? You know? So like, forget about it. So I went with John and that's it. And since then, my ethnicity is not an issue. I've been fortunate. And a lot of times I get to play both. I get to play everything.
It also circles back to what you're saying about finding that line between, if you're a good character actor, do you stick to being a character actor or do you try and branch out of what's expected of you? And I think that's in the same vein where it's like, obviously you don't want to only have these typecast roles where your identity is centered around your ethnicity.
Right.
Like, be a better writer. Give my character some depth.
Exactly.
It's not about
It's
that.
cheap and easy.
Yeah. One of the crazier scenes too is really close after that where Lisa goes to Gary's house to take him to the party.
Oh my God.
Right.
And she pulls the gun on the dad.
Dude,
That's a funny bit. I mean, though, when she talks to him about that, when she's like, whatever, like what kind of party they're going to do. And it's like just your typical, like kids running around with their underwear, you know, just your typical high school, you know. the way Anthony Michael Hall, that scene where he's like, right, he's so nervous. Right. Lisa, she's joking. We're going to a movie party. Movie party. It's a movie party.
It's a movie part. There's so much witty repartee between both her and both of the lead, Wyatt and Gary.
Mhm.
The timing where she's always like correcting them to make them cooler.
Yes.
And I mean, really great interplay between the three of them. And the gun's cocking, and then later you realize it's a water gun. And that obviously plays in the end sequence again. Because it's like, well, that can't be a water gun if she's gonna Russian roulette it. But that scene is so effective. And then she ends up amnesiaing the dad. So he doesn't even remember he
Doesn't
has a
remember
son.
Gary.
Who's
Who the hell
Gary?
is that?
Also, can we
Who's
give
Gary?
credit to that supporting cast? These like, I mean, the dad is well known. I've seen him in stuff. Never seen the mom, and she's brilliant.
The mom is the best part of that scene because the mom is somehow the straight man. The dad is going ape shit. And the mom's like, they're teenager. Like she's kind of taking it in stride.
I just found it funny how she's like always saying that she's loyal to them. She'll do what they want, but she never actually listens to them. She's always going against.
She knows better. Though.
Yeah, she knows
She
better.
knows what they
Yeah.
actually
But
need.
I find that funny though because it's like I'm loyal to them. I'll do whatever they want, but it's her way, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just like interesting how they eventually also, I think, admit they see her as like an older sister.
She's the static character. She comes out of the computer as she is,
Yeah.
self-aware, self-empowered, willing to help her creators, and like you said, a genie, get her freedom. Because at the end, that's ultimately what happens.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they bill it. I mean, the guys are watching Bride of Frankenstein. They bill it as a Bride of Frankenstein, but I think you're much more accurate
With
with
the genie.
the
I've
genie.
never-
yeah.
She grants them their wishes. She helps them find what they actually need instead of what they think they want, and then she goes and does her own thing.
Yeah, that's kind of that's what a genie really does. Isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, figures out what you
Yeah.
thought you needed was not really it. It was something else. Yeah.
And then they end up like
Yeah.
having that party. That party just goes fucking insane.
Party goes crazy.
But those fucking, like I said,
The
there's-
mutants that come.
You
The-
do-
the
I've
dude
never
that-
seen it before. Oh my
Before
God.
that craziness, they already the Robert Downey Jr. character, like the two asshole guys that have the cute girls.
Yeah.
They ditch their cute girls that they are at the party, and they convince Wyatt and Gary to make them their own girl, but they forget to hook up the electrodes to a doll. And
Oh,
the
yeah,
electrodes are on a Time
That's
magazine.
Right, that's right.
The scene when the rocket comes up through the floor, right? That
Mhm.
was a very complicated setup. Lot of parts to it. Right before the camera rolled, Anthony Michael Hall farted, and the entire cast members' concentration was ruined. It ruined the entire take because they were all laughing about it or whatever. They estimated that cost about $100,000 to
my
reshoot.
What?
God.
Oh, because the thing had started to go up, and he did that. Are you for real? $100,000?
And in the 80s. That's not
In 80s
that's not
dollars.
current money. That's $100,000.
So we're talking like 400.
Fuck.
That's
dude.
Well,
a one shot thing, and you blew the one shot like
How did John Hughes work with him again? And that was
time
like,
and time again.
Wait, but I think they fixed it by like doing. They had to reverse it, or maybe I'm
Oh,
wrong
I didn't
about
read
that.
that part.
Maybe they had to reverse. I think they were able to salvage it somehow, but
Ooh.
But they played it backwards.
I
or
think it was a
something.
reverse.
and
thing.
he must
It
have
might
done that
been
on
different.
purpose. He must have thought
Yeah.
that this is going to get
Oh, this
such
will
a
be
laugh.
funny.
Yeah. Right before they create the nuke, though. Remember, there was that woman playing the piano.
That's
Okay.
gratuitous nudity.
This is
Yeah.
it's like, how is this a PG-13 movie?
Yeah.
Now looking back, because she's playing the piano and all the air is getting sucked out of the room. The piano, like all this shit's going up the ceiling and falling into the pool, and all her clothes start getting ripped off, and it is just full like tit shot. And then she gets sucked out, and whoop,
That looks
Oh,
very
that
dangerous.
was a crazy sequence.
Yeah,
That was a
I'm like, how did they
crazy
do that?
sequence.
So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
already
yeah.
crazy. The like living room or the kitchen turns all blue. And then she's like, I'm going to help him get some confidence. Let me bring in a violent biker gang to
From Mad
destroy
Max.
the house.
From Mad Max.
Did you see the car? Like you don't even really get a glimpse of it till the end when the house has like holes in the walls.
Yeah.
The car is full Mad Max.
After the Mad Max scene, right? They like confront him. It's being done so that they can build their self confidence, be confident. They confront him, and I do like the bit where they finally are like they leave. I think it's the lizard guy or some shit
Yeah.
who's just like it's like I got to get up early tomorrow morning or something like
Yeah,
that.
It's
I got a teaching job.
Yes. Please don't tell anyone about this. I don't want to lose my teaching job.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Brilliant. But also, didn't she conjure them from magic? That was a little confusing for me.
But again, those are the little suspension of disbelief things.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
thing, though, right? It's like at a certain point, though, like after she's created, I just wasn't even. I just considered it like an abstract movie.
It
This
is
is not.
because she can Deus Ex Machina anything
Yeah,
in or
she
out.
creates cars. She messes with memory.
Yeah.
She can change clothes. It's just like none of this makes sense.
Just dropped Deus Ex Machina. I can't even pronounce it right. But just dropped it like it ain't no thing.
What? I'm a film school nerd.
But-
exactly.
Here's-
So it was just like, the movie has no logic.
I think the biggest suspension of disbelief for me is the fact that the girls just lived through all this. Granted, the guys saved them with what turns out to be a real gun, which that's a very interesting payoff.
It's a
terrifying.
fake gun. Ba, ba, ba.
Pa, pa, pa. Like, thank God you didn't actually point it at her again.
So
when you
this
did
is
that.
one of your things
So-
with like guns. then.
Well, the gun. I'm a Texan who doesn't like guns. I know it's a misnomer, but the thing for me that bothers me the most in that moment is these two girls still want to stay in that house with these boys. I would be running the
That's a good
fuck
point.
out the door. Like, you're cute and all, but I don't need any of this nonsense.
Yeah,
This
I love how they just embrace that moment where the girl is like, I know it's been a weird night, but can I ask you something weird? Like, can I kiss you? And I was like, that's hot.
But you know what? This is very parallel to Some Kind of Wonderful, another one of my
Mm.
favorites. I think John Hughes wrote that one too.
Mhm.
The party, the nerds standing up to the bully
Yep.
in front of everybody.
Yep.
That's very big. It's a thing that even if I wasn't like really a nerd, but I definitely was like, oh my gosh, I would love that opportunity to be like the hero in this scenario. So again, he just got being a teen and what we all wanted.
Chet comes home and sees that the fucking house is a disaster. And I love that he pulls out a gun because he's just like, what the hell is going on here?
A lot of guns this week. And he just shoves the rifle in the
Yeah.
dude's, the chick's nose. Like, he
Yeah.
just
Yeah, that's intense.
very
He's like,
intense.
Where's Wyatt? And then he's like, yes, sworn to secrecy. And then I guess, what is it, a troll that he's turned into?
I think it's a frog monster because it's somebody sticks his tongue out and it
Catch
catches
the
a fly.
Yeah.
I mean, that moment, I'm like, this movie is fucking bizarre, man. What the hell is this? But it was fucking funny.
It was a lot. That monster was a lot.
When she kisses him, Kelly LeBrock, and grabs his butt,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that's how you kissed. So the very first kiss I gave in elementary school, I did that. Because I just thought, like, innocently, I was like,
Oh,
this is how you kiss.
this
If
is
you really know what you're doing, you do that.
What happened?
I didn't get slapped. I mean, she was my girlfriend. I
Aw.
had consent.
No, but I was just curious if she was like, whoa, what the hell was that?
We were in 6th grade, which is a little weird. but no, yeah.
And Lisa gets her freedom. She decides she's
Lisa gets her
gonna
freedom.
leave the guys. She disappears the same way she came in a puff of smoke in the bathroom.
They have that moment where at the end where they're like crying about like, we got to let you go or whatever. And I didn't give a fuck.
Yeah, you're not invested in it because they're
I
not real
wasn't
people.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't.
They're not real people. There's no real stakes. You know, it's all gonna go. She can fix anything.
Yeah,
She's
she can
Aladdin.
fix anything. So all the tension you've had from the house getting destroyed or people almost dying doesn't matter.
She
You know what I
snaps
feel-
her fingers.
You know
and
who I
goes
feel
back.
bad for is Chet. He didn't do anything wrong. And our second film is Real Genius. It came out in 1985. It was rated PG. It has a runtime of an hour and 48 minutes. It was distributed by TriStar Pictures, and I guess nowadays, because Sony
Sony like took them over.
took them
I
over,
guess?
acquired them.
Yeah.
All right. And the budget was $8 million. And the box office gross for domestic, we have the domestic number, was $12.95 million. Is this the tagline when he gets mad? Okay. And the tagline is, when he gets mad, he doesn't get even. He gets creative. I don't know about that one.
That's definitely about Chris Knight, right?
Oh, geez. All
Yeah.
right. It was directed by Martha Coolidge. She
Ooh.
also directed Bad Girl in 1993, Out to Sea in 1997. It was written by Neil Israel, Pat Proft, and PJ Tarofsky. The producers were Brian Grazer, executive produced by Robert Daly, who also did Escape from Alcatraz and Dirty Harry. Plot summary is, an uptight teenage prodigy enters a top engineering college, but feels awkward among the freewheeling students. When a professor aims to turn their laser project into a military weapon, he and his offbeat roommate plot to ruin the plan.
Real Genius was rated PG.
Wow.
Weird Science, PG-13.
Yeah.
That's
Can you
wild.
believe that?
Well, it wasn't it till Raiders? No,
No,
Raiders 2.
81.
It was 2, Indiana Jones 2.
Temple Doom. Yeah, yeah,
Temple of Doom, whatever year that was.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know this. That's when the PG-13 was invented.
That's right.
Because of
Yeah.
the beating heart. Parents were really upset because they took their kids to watch this, and some dude reaches into another guy's chest and pulls out a beating
Right.
heart.
Yeah.
So this one, I am wearing my RoboCop shirt today.
Nice.
So I really appreciate that they start this one with a little commercial. You know, you
Yes.
enter the movie watching a commercial for the Crossbow Project, and you zoom out, and it's these asshole Air Force military dudes who are like talking about this new laser project they're going to use to assassinate people. And they had made themselves a commercial just for them. They decide we don't need to tell the president. They decide it's immoral and unethical. And the one, thank God, there's like a decent mind in there. And he says, no, thank you, I'm out. And they decide he gets to be liberated, which basically means they're going to murk him. So
The
they're
guy was a good guy.
not anymore. Kill
No.
him off.
Although I will say that commercial did crack me up. Well, two things was at first I thought I clicked the wrong movie.
Yep.
Because I was like, this doesn't seem like, where's Val Kilmer? And then secondly, I was also thinking like the way the guy evaporates in the chair and the guy turns around, I'm like,
The waiter, right?
the
And
waiter's
His butler.
the only thing I thought was like I would have played the butler. Like that would have been the part I got, and I would have been like, "Mom, that's me."
She's like, good job, son. This is one of my favorite things about movies of that era is they are trying to tackle somewhat heavy topics,
Yeah.
but there's such a dry humor to it that you can palate some of that stuff you wouldn't otherwise want to think about in a comedy movie.
And then from there, right, then we go to that science fair.
Yep.
We go to that
Straight
science
to
fair.
high school, straight down to the
Straight to high
15-year-old
school.
high school.
And you get a sense of that Dr. Hathaway, he's like a star. And then Mitch
I
is
love
like,
that guy. Just plays. I mean, I think everybody. I think if you're. It's funny because I went to theater school and they were like, "You want to have a versatility as an actor? That's stupid." Like, if you are, do you think Danny Trejo is upset he can't play a dentist? You know what I mean? Like he's played Danny Trejo. You think De Niro wants to play like your accountant? So in theater, they teach you that you want to be versatile and play like every role under the sun. And in theater, you can do that because you can do makeup and all that. And in a college setting, even in a professional setting, it is great to have a niche. It means you work. That Hathaway guy in Ghostbusters,
Yeah.
in Die Hard as the reporter,
Right.
he's always a jerk. When he's like, I'm wondering, has Mitch been adopted? Amazing. You know,
He hosts a television show called Everything.
everything.
He's just that smart.
It's like, do you have friends, Mitch? It's like, no, good.
No, he goes, I intimidate them. And he goes, good boy.
That's right. That's right.
This 15-year-old boy gets recruited by
Right. Gets a scholarship.
professor, like one of the youngest guys to go to this college. A lot of this was filmed at Pomona College. by
Oh,
the
I didn't
way.
know that.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Cool.
and down in San Diego.
Val Kilmer's intro is
Oh
amazing.
my God.
We got to talk about
We got to
that.
talk
Yeah.
about this. Okay.
Oh, yeah. You're rooming with, he's one of the sharpest minds. And then,
He's like, yeah, you're going to be working with him. And he's just like, oh my God, Christopher Knight, I'm going to be working with him. And then he's just walking through the campus. He's just this goofy guy.
His shirt says, I love toxic waste.
yeah.
And he's got on these little like antenna.
Oh, yeah.
And he's going for a job interview. After we've met Chris Knight,
Mm-hmm.
we go and with Mitch, he's like getting into the school. He realizes he's rooming with Chris. We get a hint of the guy in the closet, Laszlo.
Yeah.
And you're also learning the professor is involved in the scheme
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
Project.
Crossbow.
I
Crossbow.
cannot remember the name of the fucking crap. So, and the government is coming in to pressure the professor to jump up this timeline because they have a project they need to
Right.
take care of this summer.
They show again and again that they're kids. They have the whole ice thing. They're always fucking
Oh,
around.
Yeah.
You know, there are always these pranks and stuff.
A lot of their antics are based on real stories
That's what I
from
was gonna tell you, yeah.
MIT, Cambridge, and Caltech mostly.
I don't know this.
Oh, you
Yeah,
know
so
this? Yeah.
the incident with them getting revenge on Kent and putting his car in the dorm room, that is something that really happened. I think that one was MIT, but a lot of those, yeah, MIT, Caltech, and Cambridge were where they got a lot of those stories. I mean, leave it to
What?
brilliant
Yeah.
people to
You
do
guys,
some really
this is
crazy
so
pranks.
Interesting. You guys should do a podcast about that. Wait, how did
No,
they get
even the ice stuff, right? The ice,
yeah, the ice
one
stuff
too.
is a Caltech thing.
Yeah.
I
How did
think.
they get the car? Every time I see it, I think, how did they get a car in a doorway?
I don't know, dude.
I mean, I guess you can turn it this sideways and
Those
take the tires
dorms,
off.
it must have been some other room because they could have done it, but not that fast.
Yeah.
They had like a few hours.
There's
to
a little
do it.
suspension of disbelief there.
Yeah.
The director asked, like, why would these students do like these elaborate pranks? And she basically found out that it was like a way for them to like, they were so stressed out
Yeah, that makes sense.
that it was a way for them to just kind of be funny and just look at science a different way. So
Yeah.
that's why they have like a peculiar sense of humor.
They also establish the bad guy in such a clear way right up front. When you first meet the professor, you can see he's an arrogant fuck at the
Yeah.
science fair, but you're like, well, he's brilliant and maybe he'll be helping them all, whatever. The second you see him pull up at his house, the government dude's dropping him off.
Yeah.
And he's like, if you don't meet this timeline, we're going to audit the shit out of all the grant we gave you. And it looks like you're doing some work on your house. Dude gets out. His entire house is covered in people working on it. He literally shoos away a beautiful dog and says, get the fuck away.
He
Like, get
hates
out
his
of my
dog.
lawn. Beautiful dog. I wrote down the line.
I know it.
The professor says to the people working on his house when he gets out of the car, what are you looking at? You're laborers. You're supposed to be laboring. That's what, I can't even say it. That's what you get for not having an education.
Brilliant.
I mean, if you don't hate that guy right then, you have no soul.
But in a brilliant way, he's funny. It still makes you laugh. This is what you get for not having an education. Like, he's such a jerk, but in a way, that's the thing about writing comedy. These guys cannot be like real villains in a Goodfellas movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They can't be like somebody you want to see like dead, like in like a, you don't want Liam Neeson to get this guy. You just want him to get his comeuppance.
This beginning, I immediately was like, I can't wait for this house to go. It's
Right.
going to be so satisfying to watch him squirm.
And you find out later on he doesn't like popcorn,
Right.
Yes.
And so it all comes together. I mean, these little breadcrumbs are leaving for you.
There's a couple really great montages. I love an 80s montage.
80s montage. Yeah.
Montage. So we start with Mitch getting acquainted with the school and going to classes, and there's this great montage. And the further you get, like, he's going to all his classes and less students are showing up, and big boom boxes and tape recorders are sitting in their chairs
Yes.
instead.
My favorite is one of those montages is when the guy freaks out in study hall. He's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Oh my
That's the second montage. And
Yeah.
he just loses his shit, and then nobody says anything, and the guy just takes his chair.
Yeah.
Great bit.
Everybody, it's happened before. This is typical. And you know what it reminds me of? Back when, believe it or not, Ernesto, there was a time when not everybody had a computer, when only like rich kids had computers. So when I was in college, we would go to these things called computer labs. Yeah, computer labs. And
I've
there
been
were
to a few of
room-
those. Yeah, I've been to
Yeah.
a few of those.
And you'd rent the computer for an hour. You'd put your name down. You didn't pay for it, but I mean, you put your name down and then you'd write a paper. And invariably, there would be a key on the computer that doesn't exist anymore. Someone got rid of it smartly, where your whole work would disappear and you couldn't undo. And there would be moments like that where you'd be on your computer and somebody would stand up and be like, no, but why? No. And honestly, you'd just be like with a baby that's crying on a plane, you're just like, thank God that's not me.
Now's where we go to the they're making progress on the lasers, and Chris uses the lasers to guide everyone to this epic party.
Yes.
For the Tanning Invitational, he brings all the nerds to this theater, invites over all the hot girls from the beauty school, and they throw this epic party. And the best part about it is that it's a huge auditorium theater, and they put giant inflatable slides and a pool slide and a pool into the theater. They rented a VA hospital. They used the orchestra
wow.
pit. It took several hundred cubic yards of sand, an oasis of palm trees and lush foliage, pump-operated waterfall, 2 water slides, and a giant aquatic slalom fashioned from the emergency chute of a 747 jetliner.
Wow.
Yeah, the art department on that movie really had a bad day that day. They were like, you guys are having
Bad
fun?
week.
All the pressure's on us.
Wow.
And also there is a cameo by Yoshi, the bad guy in Karate Kid Part 2. His
Oh.
real name is Yoshi.
What the
Yeah,
hell?
he goes like this. Beauticians? Yes.
Oh, wait, actually, I was going to bring that back because I do love everyone refers to them as beauticians. And Chris Knight's like, student beauticians.
No, he's like soon to be or
Soon-
something like
soon
that.
to be or
Yeah, he's like,
student.
not
They're
yet.
not even beauticians.
Yeah, he's like, don't call them beauticians, you know?
Not yet. Yeah.
Kent finds out about the party, goes to Dr. Hathaway. Dr. Hathaway like then
Totally
scolds
rats
Mitch.
him out.
Yeah, he scolds Mitch. So then after that, that's when they do the phone call. He like calls his
Yeah,
mom.
poor Mitch is like, I give up. He
Yeah.
calls his mom.
and
And
the parents do not care.
they're not having it. And Kent records the whole thing.
Yeah.
Plays it on the loudspeaker at lunch the next day.
Yep.
Honestly, Mitch takes it like a champ. He just sits there and takes it, but then he goes back to his room and packs this shit up.
Yeah, he's leaving.
Yeah. No, that was that was hard.
Now, here's what I wondered. Is Chris Knight in the cafeteria listening to this, or does he find out later?
I don't think so. It seems like he's back in the room and
Later, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's where Chris reveals about Laszlo.
Yeah.
And you learn about why Laszlo lost his shit.
And why Chris is like this.
Yes.
More-
And that caused Chris, yeah.
Yeah, because Chris realized in that moment, oh, what a great line. One of the great lines of the whole movie. There's so many. But he says, one day I went down there and I saw the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. I said, what? Laszlo in his underpants. And it's just like, that's a great character reveal there.
It is. And Val's so supportive. Even though
He's got a big heart.
Yeah. And he says, you can't leave. We have to finish this. And you should use your mind creatively to get revenge.
Yes.
You can't leave because you got to get back Kent.
Moral
for this bullshit.
imperative.
That's the one. That's the class. I think that's the
And it's a
classic
moral
line, yeah.
imperative,
It's a
which
moral
I think,
imperative.
and that's the thing with the 80s. I feel like revenge was like a big thing, like payback.
Well,
Yeah.
and standing up for yourself.
Right.
Like someone's bullying you and telling you you're less than, even though you know you're not, but you still believe them. And then it takes a friend to be like, fuck that. And I don't know, it's a really beautiful moment. And it's a good mirror they set up for later when Chris is going through it.
Yeah.
With Hathaway.
Right?
Yeah.
Chris shows up to the professor's house, and this is where we meet the evil government guy's daughter. And
Yeah.
she says this line.
Oh, yeah. Go, you say it. Oh, go.
I feel like
I'm not going to say it.
I can say it. Okay, so Chris hits on Terry Quinn's daughter, and he's like, have you ever seen a body like this? And he's like, yeah, actually, she's my daughter. And he's like, oh, so you have.
Right. Great.
Takes
line
it in stride. And then he's like, give me a call if there's anything I can do for you, or more on point, anything I can do to you. So many good lines. And then she says, can you hammer a 6-inch spike through a board with your penis? He replies very casually, no, not at this time. Something like that. And she goes, well, a girl's got to have her standards. And leaves. And Val Kilmer's just flabbergasted. Like, this is the woman for him.
She's topped him. She's left him speechless. Right. Yeah, that's the brilliance of it.
Now Chris is like, I'm going to quit.
Right, because he threatens him. He says, "You're not going to graduate."
Yeah, he's like,
Right.
no matter if you've passed the test or not, I'm going to flunk you. You're never going to get out of
Right.
this. Like, with a passing grade. And this is where Laszlo also offers to help with the
Oh,
test.
yes.
Because Laszlo is coming up and he's got these boxes in his
Oh, my
hand,
God,
which
great
I
bit.
love. And again, this is such good dialogue, the reveal in this, because he's holding 3 giant boxes, look like note cards. And he's like, hey, Chris, don't worry. I got you, man. I got all the questions from any of Hathaway's tests ever. And Chris is like, cool. Are those them? And he goes, no.
Yeah, why would you think
Why
that?
would you think that?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I memorized them. These are entries into the Frito-Lay contest. And
Yeah.
with my calculations, I'm going to win, I don't know, 31.8% of all the prizes. This is also based on a real thing that happened.
Yeah. So this was based on real students that did this too.
Oh, I wrote
They
it
entered
down.
like a ton of sweepstakes. I think they had a 32% chance of winning, and they ended up winning like a ton of shit.
Were they like MIT people?
It was
too?
in 1974. It was 3 guys at Caltech,
Caltech.
and it was a McDonald's. It was a McDonald's competition. They won 1/5 of the entire prize pool. 1/5 of the entire prize pool, including $3,000 cash, $1,500 McDonald's food prizes, and a station wagon. Everything's kind of going better, and they're about to test the laser, and Kent goes in and puts the smudge on the glass.
Oh yeah.
Kent being Kent. He
Right.
just goes in and fucks it up. And of course, Kent, also being Kent, tells on himself like an idiot.
Yeah, Yeah.
And I'm sorry about your meltdown.
How
And
did you know about
Val
that
Kilmer's
meltdown?
like, what meltdown? And Ken, like his face right there is so good. He's like, oh fuck. Like you can see he realizes he just outed himself
Yeah,
as
didn't
the
someone-
saboteur.
Yeah, didn't anyone teach you to keep your something clean or something like that? Yeah.
Your lenses clean, your optics clean.
Your
Yeah.
optics clean.
Optics clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's when he
But
has
that's
that,
when he
they have
has
that
the
epiphany,
realization.
right?
Yeah.
Which is a great way to do it too, because it could have been him through disaster, which so much in real life, so many scientists discover stuff by accident.
All the pieces start to come together at this point. Then they test the real laser and the new improved laser, and it cuts through the statue. It cuts through all these buildings. One of my favorite bits in the whole movie is when they know the professor is in on it, and they have to figure out. Kent only knows the day shit's going down. The laser gets taken away, that's stolen out of their lab,
Mhm.
and they decide they're gonna use Kent to figure out how it's all going to work. And they drug him, like put some nitrous gas in his room. They have 2 minutes. They install a little antenna and speaker into his braces, which they say is a great antenna. Genius. He's had the braces the whole time.
Exactly.
Perfect. And they become this voice of God in Kent's head. And they get him to like help out and realize that he's part of this bad shit and tell him to stop touching himself.
The voice of God. Yeah, Jesus. Yeah.
And that's
Or
that's
Jesus.
actually what
You're right,
convinces
it's
him.
Jesus.
That's what convinces him that it's real. If you recall, he goes,
Right.
all this stuff is that this is Jesus, all this and that. And then he goes, and Kent, stop playing with yourself. And he goes, it is God. Only God would know that. You know, he's so innocent and stupid.
Yeah.
It's great.
So smart, but so stupid.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's funny that within this school of geniuses, I mean, it's like the X-Men school for geniuses. You have Bodhi, who's like giving himself an electroshock. Remember to not stutter anymore. They can't help but put in like some dumb geniuses.
really got to make your big geniuses.
Right. You gotta have Mitch and Chris really stand out.
Yeah, it's true.
They come together. They want to hack into the tracking system to kind of sabotage this whole experiment. They create this whole elaborate thing where they change the coordinates so that it's on Dr. Hathaway's house.
Right.
Although I do love Dr. Hathaway's line. I don't know why this made me laugh. He's talking to the military people and he's like, this whole thing is about space to kill someone.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we doing an airplane? He's like, what the hell is going on? I don't understand this test. It's like so stupid.
Why didn't they do it in space? Oh, because they had to be on the plane, I guess, right? Or no, were they even on the plane? No, they're like in a base.
I honestly,
They're on an Air Force base.
Yeah, why wouldn't they do it?
Because it's a movie and they couldn't actually go to space.
That's what I was thinking.
No, but I mean, fake it. You know, like
I don't know. There's no reason.
That
for
was
it.
a little bit of explaining.
Yeah,
right.
There was no reason for
80s
it.
rarely explained.
Yeah, I know. Dude.
Which is wonderful because you just want to get to the fun.
Yeah.
When you look at these really elaborate, like the party with the sand and the thing and the slides and then the popcorn, people have to do that. And that is so stressful. And I mean, and we get
Stressful
to I get to step into that as an actor and just have this totally accentuate my work. And they went in the night before and spent all night doing that stuff.
God bless the crew who had to do this. They had an entire studio dedicated to popping popcorn. It took 3 months to pop enough popcorn to fill that house.
3
months.
Wow.
And the popcorn, it's like made with this flame retardant chemical on it. The crew was really vigilant. When the popcorn came out of the house, they had to keep birds away because if any birds had tried to come and eat the popcorn, they would have died.
Oh,
shit.
wow.
It's interesting, I think, in this movie, you get to just fall into that world. Whereas with Weird Science, the John Hughes of it all, they're breaking the fourth wall. They're looking at the camera. There maybe isn't as rich production design in certain parts of the film. Some parts, obviously, yes. But
yeah,
I feel like you're much more engrossed in that world in Real Genius because it's so complete.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
For the big laser test, they've brought in this congressman and the school president shows up. And he's in his robe and everyone's having a great time. And you look down and he and Chris are wearing the same bunny slippers. those little touches,
You know what that reminded me
so
of?
charming.
Raising Arizona, the Woody Woodpecker.
Yes.
That is never explained why the two of them have the same Woody Woodpecker tattoo.
Yeah, and also the ending, it's so like cheesy to me when they start playing Tears for Fears. And then but it's also like the villain got his comeuppance and that's it. Movie's done. Like
And
they don't need to go into anything else.
No. But the song is "Everybody Wants to Rule the World."
Yeah.
It's so
Oh, yeah,
on
yeah.
brand.
It really is.
It's like, yeah, everyone wants to be power hungry and be able to assassinate someone from a space plane,
Been there, done that.
right?
I just find it funny
Very
that
relatable.
everyone's just like, fuck yeah, with the popcorn. Like,
But
yeah.
bro, but that's the
It's
80s.
the 80s. You got to end on a song. Look at
Hello, like
at the
Breakfast Club.
Exactly.
Jumping in the air and doing that. I mean,
Don't you?
again, here's the thing to understand about the 80s, if you weren't a part of it, we had no sense of how cheesy things were. That word did not exist for us.
Okay.
I don't know what we
The
would have.
80s were nothing if not cheesy.
Sitcoms where you'd be like,
But
come
you didn't,
on,
but you didn't
Dad."
see it as cheesy.
Did not. We didn't watch it ironically. We watched it like we were innocent.
It was inspiring.
It was it was an innocent
Okay.
time. It was all about fun. You just, I don't know. I mean, coming out of like if you think about it, 50s were so cheesy and Father Knows Best and all that sort
Right.
of stuff. And the 60s were hippies and stuff. 70s more disco era. By the 80s, I don't know what commentary we were.
Well, there was the Cold War happening. Like,
Right.
we need
Some sort of escape.
good uplifting
Right.
stuff right now.
look, I will say 80s has a lot of escapism. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pure
Big
escapism.
time.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
all it is. And that's why I love that era too. I really do. Because it's just like, just come up with some wild shit and just make it. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Red Dawn. High school kids can take
Yes.
on the Russian army and defeat them.
A lot of stuff was centered around this looming threat, this looming unseen threat. War games,
Right.
Red Dawn, both. Weird Science even brings a nuke into it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I think there is this Ernesto's favorite topic, existential dread, that Americans
Good
were all
band name.
feeling, right? Because you don't know when someone's going to blow a nuke your way. So, yeah, we better laugh and enjoy some great 80s music.
That's great. That's wonderful. Round 2, cast and crew.
I'm a huge John Hughes fan.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we've ever talked about John Hughes.
Oh, my gosh. I just think he's, first off, the fact that some middle-aged, portly dude got what being a teen in the 80s was just so perfectly
I know.
and didn't condescend and understood like the teenage point of view, especially when it came to authority. Just so perfect.
I read that Weird Science, he wrote the script in 2 days. And
it feels like it.
it feels like it.
Yeah. And then you get on set and then the bits come to him.
Right.
So that's where I'm sure he writes a scenario and then he knows he's going to get there and he's going to have these little bits like with Chet.
You trust your casting, you trust your actors in the moment to take the script in a different, like he was clearly the good kind of director. Not every director's like this. Clearly the kind of director that would let his actors
Play.
go into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he had also obviously a great eye for talent. He
Oh,
knew the people that were good
when he
fucking
died,
actors.
I
Yeah.
was just so what a loss talent wise.
Well, he was
what
also,
he could have
dude, he was
created.
relatively young too. He was
He
like,
was probably early 50s.
yeah, something
Yeah.
like mid 50s, something
Yeah.
like it was what?
Yeah, it's a shame. Yeah.
Matthew Perry just passed away.
Yeah.
I went out with friends that night and someone said it offhand and I was like, what? And I almost started crying because it's not that you feel like I know I didn't know him.
Right.
I didn't know him
Yeah.
personally or what his real personality was like, but his persona was a part of my childhood.
Exactly. Just like John Hughes movies.
Yeah.
They brought you so much joy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, Chandler brought you so much joy.
I mean, I was devastated when Chris Farley died.
Yeah, as well.
Oh,
That one
God,
Fucked me up.
yes.
I was like, I was like 8 years old.
John Ritter too. That's another one.
Bill Paxton was it for me.
Yeah.
Like, and I had also just had to watch. I watched all of Big Love, and I had already loved Bill Paxton so much. And then spoiler, if you haven't watched the end of Big Love, fast forward 30 seconds. At the end of it, he dies. The
Oh.
patriarch of the entire family, who has 3 million families, you watch die in the middle of the street. And I already had to live that nightmare. And then a couple years later, it was like
Yeah. Have you ever seen
upsetting.
What's the movie that he did? I think he directed it. It's a dark movie, Faith or something. It's with Matthew McConaughey.
Frailty.
Frailty. There's like a cross in the thing. That's why I thought, dude, that is a good movie. You've never seen it?
I have not seen that.
Frailty. Do yourself a favor. You're a big Bill Paxton fan.
I'm gonna do it.
This is him at his best and playing something you wouldn't expect.
That's why I liked Big
he's a
Love,
great actor.
because he was just such a departure from all the snarky characters you've seen.
Yeah.
Like, but even him in Edge of Tomorrow, like, oh,
Game over, man. I mean,
Yeah.
if you can get it to where your quote is repeated and it becomes part of the American lexicon as an actor, you must be like, I did that.
I love
and so many movies he's done.
Yeah,
Aliens.
I love him in True Lies. He's like,
Oh,
I got a little dick, man. Let me go, man.
He
Come on, man.
pisses himself, and you're like,
Casting is really
Really
so
just having a good time,
important.
yeah.
No offense to the actor who played him, but my God, what perfect casting for that
oh,
kid.
yeah.
And I don't think I ever saw him in anything else again.
I
He
don't think
could
so
have
either.
easily
I'm
been.
sure I did see him. I couldn't.
I did look him up. I think he
Oh,
had a
yeah.
small part in Apollo 13, but he was like a technician or something.
Yeah, something like that. But how did he not be like in Revenge of the Nerds?
Yeah, I don't know. That guy was, you're right. He was cast perfectly.
I mean, his like the 80s were big for nerds,
yeah.
you know, and they always won, which is great
Yeah.
because in real life they don't. No, I'm joking. Yeah, they only become head of,
This is why this is all
they
pure
only,
fantasy. you
Yeah,
know?
they only own Tesla and
Apple. Yeah.
That's why I wish I could go back to high school and be like, and by the way, I was somewhere in the middle, you know, because I was in theater. But I was like, I wish I could be like, nerds, you're going to own everything.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean,
just make it past high school. You're gonna own these people who are picking on you.
As
Anyway.
the president of my debate club, and Model UN, I can tell you, I was told that by some teachers. So,
Good.
yeah.
yeah. But I also had to have some cool friends. Like, I made friends with the punks and the skaters,
There
just
you
so
go.
there was some parties I could go to.
Times have changed, though. They're not so like I did a little stint as a theater teacher for a semester, and I was very impressed with bullying has definitely gone down much, like very nicely. Like it's just
Well, no, it's just moved to social media.
touche.
Tell me I'm wrong.
They just do it behind your back.
Touche.
Yeah.
Laszlo has some range as an actor.
He was in a lot of stuff.
He was in a
that
lot of
era.
stuff back then. He was in a great movie I love called Running Scared
Oh,
And
God.
with Gregory Hines and Billy Crystal
Yes.
and Stephen Bauer. He plays Stephen Bauer. You know Stephen Bauer from Scarface, the Cuban guy?
Yeah.
He's plays his partner, and they're like nemesis. Anyway,
Great movie.
Yeah.
Great movie.
love
Love
it,
Gregory
right?
Hines. Love
Yeah.
Gregory Hines.
I
Oh.
love Gregory Hines.
Round 3, the 80s style.
The reason I'm an 80s aholic is not just because I grew up in that era and it's the best era ever,
Yeah.
but because I didn't go out. My parents were scared to let me out because we were newly arrived immigrants and they just watched the news, and Miami around that time was crazy.
Mm.
So literally I could play in my block. I had a bike and I could only ride around the block. It
Oh,
was really-
wow.
But on the upside, my dad had a cable box that he got from a friend. Somehow we never paid for it. But I watched everything.
Yeah.
And because I didn't speak English, I could watch like Eddie Murphy Delirious, Eddie Murphy Raw, like anything R-rated I could watch as long as there was no nudity. It could be violence. Like I watched, you could watch Schwarzenegger blow away 30 people. That's fine. But if there's a hint of nudity, it's like, turn this off.
What is this trash? Yeah.
What are you doing with this? So movies were my life. And actually, the Val Kilmer character in this, Chris Knight, I loved his sense of humor so much, and it's kind of sarcastic stuff. Just great lines.
And
that-
fashion sense.
As well, the
come on.
little slippers. But I actually, believe it or not, copied him. Like at school, I would be like trying to talk like him. Like someone would say something, and I'd try to like do like a Val Kilmer retort. That's why when I saw him as Iceman in Top Gun, I was like, this is a departure from Chris. You're like mean Chris Knight.
He's got some acting chops. You're like, oh shit.
He's very good.
We both have this appreciation for the cheesy campiness that in our time was not cheesy and campy. It was just charming. And it
Mhm.
was just heartfelt.
Yeah, and now it's chicken soup. Now it's like, oh, give me some of this. Oh, this feels so warm and familiar, And for you, it's like, this is weird. Stuff from the 80s felt fresh. It felt raw. It felt just like me. And it was like, I just didn't have a bad judgment on it. And I know that seems crazy now when you look at that stuff, but I mean, again, we wore neon and fingerless gloves unironically.
Right.
You know, we thought we were badasses, man.
We were. We were.
Exactly. Fun was a huge thing. You know, I have kids now, they're teenagers, and they're more like, that's stupid. Everything is stupid.
Yeah.
They have their fun, but they have so much. I mean, I sound like such an old guy right now. Like, not like when I was growing up.
No, but I know what you're saying, because I did grow up in an era where I was in between that.
Yeah.
Before technology advanced so much. So when I do see like these types of movies, I do know what it's like to go to like arcades, skating rinks, things like that. It's like those things you do with you socialize, it's like you're just out and about. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of that is lost, which is, I know what you're getting at.
When we got our first VCR and we went to my first like video store and I rented my first movies, I was like, Police Academy 1 and Police Academy 2? I can watch them back to back? That blew my mind. And those were the first 2 movies I rented at a video store.
A lot of these films, 80s films, just get to the fun. We're not going to bog you down with background or details.
Explanation.
And I think, it's interesting to see that kind of filmmaking. It's interesting to see in general how filmmaking has evolved, because, when I went to film school, it's so centered on everything has to be justified. That's good. That's good advice. But it also depends what the hell you're trying to make. It's like sometimes things can be implied. Things can be, the audience can fill it in. You don't need to, because then also that's a different kind of bad filmmaking where you have to spell everything out. It's just,
you don't trust your audience.
Yeah, you have to, it's a balance of trusting your audience and also making something meaningful and fun. But again, it depends what you're trying to make.
I want to go on a ride. You know, like I think Jurassic Park probably did it best with the explanation of the DNA from the mosquito in that goofy little cartoon.
So good.
And then you're like, now I buy it. And there's a site, of course, Michael Crichton, so you had a real math science guy doing the heavy lifting there. But that got us to like, okay, now I know how you did it. And now I don't want to hear another word about it.
Who doesn't remember Dino DNA?
Right.
I mean, it's classic. And yeah, it explains it just enough.
Round 3, Real Genius versus Weird Science. Who's the winner?
I think you're a guess. You should go first. You should declare the winner.
Okay, I feel like I made up my mind back in 1985. Real Genius. It's a superb movie. I love John Hughes. I love Weird Science. I'd say it's definitely one of the more thin storylines for me. It's a little silly, too silly. I do enjoy it. But Real Genius is just a classy movie. There's so much great story and characters and totally original, without a doubt. Real Genius.
Yeah, I was telling Drew, I struggled with this watch because neither movie really blew me away. I wasn't really crazy about either one.
All right, I'm leaving right now.
I checked out with Weird Science. I just really did. I just was like, man, I can't. It was too illogical. It was really abstract. I don't know what the fuck was going on half the time. Yeah, I wasn't really into it. Real Genius, it had me the first half of the movie. I just thought it was a little too long, but I do enjoy more of the bits from Real Genius. I felt like it was better written. It felt like a real movie, whereas, I don't know, Weird Science felt like an amusement park kind of movie, because there's also winking to the camera and like this kind of breaking the fourth wall. I'm like, what the hell is this? So I wasn't really into it, but if I were to decide between these two, I would definitely go with Real Genius. It's just a better movie.
100% agree. Both counts. I appreciate the One Crazy Night movies, like it's fun. Hot Tub Time Machine wouldn't exist without these kind of movies. Like it has its place. Datedness aside, it has its place. It's a fun fantasy for a teenager to watch growing up. And there's a lot of interesting stuff they tried to do with practical effects and stuff like that. But Martha Coolidge direction, the writing in Real Genius, it feels like a complete story that was well thought out. There's a lot of good payoffs and callbacks. The repartee between that entire cast is flawless. Val Kilmer, the way he sleeps on the bed is enough for that to be like the movie for me. For me, it's definitely Real Genius. And I don't know if you should even waste your time on Weird Science. Like, go to the other John Hughes movies first.
Yeah.
I was surprised by how much of Weird Science I had totally spaced out. The wit and the humor of Real Genius, the jokes and the timing, it propels you through that movie
Yeah.
because you just can't wait to know what little one-liner they're going to zing at you next. And Weird Science, while it may have craziness, it doesn't have that heart underneath it. It
Yeah.
doesn't have that
Yeah.
like cleverness.
Yeah,
to
you don't
it.
invest in it as a real thing. And again, Real Genius also has some, the theme or I don't know, I hate saying message, but it's almost like Jurassic Park, just because you can doesn't mean you should,
Right.
Like, and just because you can have these genius guys develop the stuff, should we be creating something that can neutralize a human being from space without any judge, jury, or execute,
Yeah.
I want to thank you. This has been a blast. This is my dream come true to just movie talk.
Well, thank you, Jon, so much for being our guest today.
Great being here.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone. We just want to close the episode by giving a little shout out to all the people that help make Twin Films possible. Our amazing sound mixer is Christopher Garcia. The Twin Films theme song was written and composed by Ricky Lee Kroll, and graphics provided by Monica Sandoval.